Okay guys, so here's part 2 of the section 5 notes. We're now going to graph functions that are in our slope-intercept form. So remember the formula for slope-intercept. It is going to be y equals mx plus b. So when we graph these functions, we will need to identify the slope and as well as our y-intercept. From there, once we figure out the y-intercept, we're going to plot that and then use the slope to graph other points. So we need to make sure we graph at least 5 points. Okay? Let's look at our first one. We have y equals negative x minus 1. Okay, let's identify our slope and our b value. So m. Remember, our slope is always going to be the number in front of x. We do see a negative, but we don't see a number. Remember, whenever we multiply or divide and we don't see a number, that is an assumed 1. So actually, our slope is negative 1. Okay, let's identify our b value. That is the y-intercept. That is also negative 1. Okay? Now, be careful. The b is the y-intercept. So if we wanted to graph this, we need to make sure we have the correct point. So because it's the y, negative 1 is the y value, but the x is going to be 0. So the y-intercept, the x is always 0. So we're going to plot the point of 0, negative 1. And from there, we're going to use our slope to find everything else. So notice, okay, let's make our negative 1 into a fraction. Remember, we can, anytime we have an integer, we can put it over 1 to make it a fraction. And remember, we do rise over run. So negative 1 means I'm going to go down 1. So I'm going to go down 1, and then my denominator, I have a positive 1, means I'm going to go to the right. So I go down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1. Now let's say I wanted to go backwards, okay? That's fine to do so. So if we wanted to go backwards, instead of going down 1, we could go up 1. Then, instead of going to the right, we could go to the left. That's how we can finish up our line. And we know we did that correctly because it looks like a line. If it doesn't look like a line, you did something incorrect there. So just be careful. Now, once you plot your points, make sure you connect them with a line. And we need arrows, okay? Because just plotting them doesn't mean anything. You need to connect them to represent a line. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. So we have y equals negative 1/2 x. We're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to identify our slope. So remember, the slope is the number always in front of the x. So in this case, we have n equals negative 1 divided by 2. Now let's identify our b. Now notice we don't see a number. Well, anytime we are adding or subtracting and we don't see a number, that is an assumed 0. So our b value, or the y-intercept, is 0. Now, if we wanted to write this as a point, because we have to plot it, remember, our x value will always be 0 when we have y-intercepts. And in this case, our y is 0 as well. So we're at the origin. So I plot my b, or my y-intercept, which is 0, 0. Now I use my slope to plot the other points. Remember, we do rise over run. So since we have a negative slope, just like the last one, we go downhill, right? So anytime we have negative slope, it looks like we're going down. A positive slope means we're going up. Okay, meaning I go down 1, and then it looks like I go to the right 2. Okay, let me do it again. Go down 1 to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2. Now let's say I wanted to go backwards. Well, instead of going down 1, I can go up 1. And then instead of going to the right, I can go left 2. And that's going to finish off that line there. Okay. Now don't forget, connect your points. There you go. And have arrows. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. Here we have y equals negative 3. Now, once again, we have to plot 5 points. And remember our formula, y equals mx plus b. Okay, well notice here, we don't even see an x. We just have y equals negative 3. Well, if we don't have an x, this actually means that our slope is 0. Because if we do 0 times x, Well, that just gives me 0, okay? And then my y-intercept, my b here, is -3. So when I plot that point, remember 0 is going to be x, and then whatever the y value is, that's the y-intercept, okay? So plotting that point of 0, -3, okay? If I have a slope of 0, I'm not rising over anything. But remember, I can rewrite this so it's as a fraction. So 0/1, which means our rise over run. So I don't rise anywhere because that's 0. But I do run, meaning I can go to the right one, and I can do the reverse. I can go to the left one. Okay, notice what line we try to make. We create a horizontal line. So remember when we talked about slope, whenever our slope is 0, we always have a horizontal line. Another way we can tell is anytime we have y equals a number, that's when we're going to have a horizontal line. Okay, let's look at the next one. Here we have x equals 2. Well, we don't even have the m, and there's no b. So this is where we once again talked about our slope when we have this x equals 2. What happens is this is when we have it, what we call an undefined slope. Okay? So remember, an undefined slope meant that we have a number divided by 0. Okay? And remember, we can't divide by 0 because we can't put things in 0 groups. Okay? So that means our b, there is none, because we will not cross the y-axis at all. Instead, our line is going to be vertical. Okay. So anytime, to notice if we have a vertical line, anytime we have x equals a number, that's when we will have that vertical line. So what we need to do is figure out, well, what's the number that x represents? That's going to be our x-intercept. Okay. Make sure you have this down on your notes. If you need to pause the video to do so, make sure. Okay. So let's look at our equation again. We have x equals, I think it was 2. Yes. So that is actually our x-intercept. So that's where it crosses the x-axis. So we are at 2. Remember, that point really represents 2, 0. So I'm going to put that point there, and then we're going to draw a vertical line going through that point. There we go. Okay. So those were our special type of graphs. We did talk about these, like the vertical and horizontal, when we talked about slope in our section 3. So be careful with those ones, okay? Okay, make sure if you have any questions, you contact me and make sure you complete the homework assignment. I'll see you guys later.